Hi, and welcome to this DBE forum. Today we're going to talk about DBE outreach and what you can do to help bolster your DBE participation and attainment as it relates to trying to meet DBE goals in your program. And so we're going to talk about how do you get DBE attainment in large transit systems and small transit systems, whether you're in a metropolitan area or if you're in a rural area or a small populated area, or if you have a race neutral DBE program. So what we want to get into today is some of the topics of how do you get DBE participation, how do you conduct DBE outreach in all types of areas, in all types of program, whether race conscious or whether race neutral. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to go through a presentation, and then at the end I'm going to open it up for comment, and I encourage you to participate either through verbal communication with me or through a series of chat messages. So what you're listening to right now is a recorded message, and then at the end I'm going to be live answering your questions and conducting the actual forum. So I'm going to go into some of the mechanics of just trying to figure out why are you here, how do you get DBE participation, how do you implement this DBE program, and kind of what we're all about in the DBE program. So you'll see here, what is your purpose? You know, how did you actually get here? Why are you here, and what do you do now that you are here? So most of you are possibly DBE liaison officers. And so as we talk about that, you know, what is a DBE liaison officer? What are your requirements? What are you here to do? And so what I look at is first, how did you actually get here? And, you know, several ways of how you got into this actual position as a DBE liaison officer. And some of the mechanics that we say here are that you apply directly for a DBE LO position. And you went into it knowing exactly what to expect. You wanted to come in and implement the DBE program. So we call you guys enlisted folks. So you came in knowing possibly not all of the requirements about the DBE program, but what are the objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? And then I have another category called assigned DBE LO responsibilities. You know, you came into transit, you're thinking you're going to be a transit planner or financial person or administrative assistant, or you're doing grants, you know, project management, program management, and then they come to you and saying, congratulations, you're drafted. I want you to become our agency's disadvantaged business enterprise liaison officer. So I call you guys the drafted folks. And wherever you come into play, there are certain standards that you have to meet as it relates to the DBE program. And so you'll see here, you know, it's important to understand how you actually got here. I think that can make a big difference in how you implement the program. You can't do anything about the past, but now that you are here, you know, what do you do? So why are you here in particular? Why did they choose you to become the DBE liaison officer of record? And if you enlisted, why did they choose you to be that person to represent the organization regarding DBE program matters? And I go back to define what does liaison actually mean. And so I have a definition here. According to Webster, it says a person who helps organizations or groups to work together and provide information to each other. And so we talk about the disadvantaged business enterprise liaison officer. And so you're going out to try to help organizations or groups. How do you mend those relationships that have been damaged in the past? How do you create those relationships if they've never been formed to help businesses be successful with you and your organization? So that's what we call a liaison. And so when we look at, you know, what do you do now that you are here? And we go back to the objectives of the DBE program. And one is to ensure non-discrimination in the award and administration of DOT-assisted contracts in the department's highway, transit, and airport financial assistance programs. And so that's one of the goals or objectives of the DBE program, to ensure that there's non-discrimination in the award. And this is true across the board for DBEs and non-DBEs. So it's not just DBEs that we're focusing in on, but we're trying to create that level playing field, which is the next objective of the program. And prior to 1999, when we had Part 23, 49 CFR Part 23, we had what we call maximizing opportunities to DBEs. And now the objective of the DBE program is to actually create that level playing field. And how do we do that? Through the goal setting process. We're trying to figure out how many DBEs and non-DBEs are out there that can provide the services that we're looking to procure in the upcoming 3 fiscal years. And then next, you will see the next objective of the program is to ensure that these DBE programs are narrowly tailored in accordance to applicable law. And so this narrowly tailored concept comes into play to where you're making sure that your DBE program fits your particular marketplace. It's not just some sample DBE program that you adopted that everyone else is using. This program is speaking to your particular agency, and this is how your agency is going to create this level playing field and ensure non-discrimination in the award of DOT-assisted contracts. And then next, we want to make sure that only firms that meet this part's eligibility standards are permitted to participate as DBEs in your programs. And this is that certification process that we have in each state called a Unified Certification Program, or UCP. And so now your UCP is going out making sure that these folks that are participating in the DBE program as DBEs are actually certified as a DBE, and they meet the requirements, the eligibility requirements. So there's a process that goes along with that. Next, we want to remove those barriers. How do you remove barriers? You know, you go out, and this is a new segment. This is a new segment in your DBE program called Fostering Small Business Participation. And so that required all of you guys to go out, look at how can we do more business with small businesses? How can we remove those barriers that are in front of some of our small businesses, those bonding requirements, those large contracts that we want to unbundle, those insurance requirements that are really not applicable to these smaller procurements that we want to let in the upcoming 3 fiscal years. And so this small business participation process required you as an agency to sit down with all of the departments and try to figure out how can we be more open to doing business with small businesses. So that's another objective of the program. And then next, I highlighted this because this is something that came out in 2014 that really speaks to you as a DBE liaison officer. How do you promote the use of DBEs in all types of federally assisted contracts and procurements activities in your contracting activities? So how do you promote the use of these DBEs in your contracting opportunity? And this speaks to where, you know, did I enlist in this or was I drafted in this? Whatever the case is, you're in it now and you need to promote those DBEs. So I'm going to talk about how you promote the DBEs. How do you get the outreach out there? How do you let DBEs know about the program and some of the program benefits once you're in the program? So we're going to talk about all of that today. How do you assist in the development of firms that can compete successfully in the marketplace outside the DBE program? You know, can we foster these small businesses and these DBEs, build them up with some opportunities, and now once they graduate, they can go out and compete successfully in the marketplace. And so this is this kind of incubator process to get them activities to learn how to do business with DOT-assisted agencies. And then once they get their feet wet, if you will, now they can participate in your program as prime contractors. The whole point of the program is to get them to graduate out the program to where they don't need that assistance anymore and they can compete fairly in the marketplace. And then next we want to provide that flexibility, and the USDOT wants to provide that flexibility to recipients that receive that federal financial assistance in establishing and providing those opportunities. So they don't want to tell you this rigid process to where this is how you need to get DBE participation. This is how you do it, this, and that. The US DOT allows you to create your own program to figure out, how am I going to foster small businesses? How am I going to outreach to DBEs to let them know about the certification process, to let them know about the benefits of certification? And speaking of benefits of certification, we want to get into that particular topic now, because many of you are dealing with businesses that you possibly are already doing business with, and they say, well, why do I need to get certified? I'm already doing business with you as a direct vendor, or what we call prime contractor. And so you talk about, oh, you know, we want to get you certified so we can count you. Well, that's a benefit for you. What's in it for me as a DBE or a business to get DBE certified? And so they go through this application process. You know, I'm submitting all this paperwork to you guys, and there's no guarantee that I'm going to get any kind of contract. You don't have 8A set-asides like they do in the Small Business Administration. Well, I get certified, and then, you know, do we equip our DBEs with the tools necessary in order to succeed in DOT-assisted contracts? And so we want to talk about some of the tools of why even get certified in the first place. And some of these benefits are listed here, listed in a statewide UCP directory. And so, you know, when you get certified as a DBE, you're getting into this UCP, Unified Certification Program Directory, to where all of the grantees, those are all your transit systems, your highway systems, your aviation systems that receive grant money from the US DOT. And then they are looking to this UCP database to find those DBEs to meet race-conscious goals and to also meet race-neutral goals. And this is where the big advantage is, to where you have to complete one application for your entire state, and then you're onto that list. Next, another benefit is to get on a nationwide list, to where once you're certified as a DBE in your home state, you can get certified in other states through what we call an interstate certification process. It's not an automatic certification. However, there's a process in place around the country to where a DBE that's already certified in their home state can get actually certified in other states through a modified process. And some states have the option to, or all states have the options to really have two choices. Either they approve and verify that the DBE is in good standing with their home state, and bam, they're in your state's UCP. Other UCPs said that they want to look at the application package independently, and so they have 60 days to look at that, and if everything is okay, then they're in that state's UCP. As a DBE liaison officer, you want to make sure that you understand which process your UCP decided upon, option A or B. But that's definitely an advantage to getting DBE certified. But, you know, really, how does that help the DBEs? Well, once you get into the program, there's something offered through the OSDBU, Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, and to where they have this Small Business Transportation Resource Center in 13 different regions across the country. And so as a DBE liaison officer, you know, I need to be familiar with this. Where are these resource centers located so I can tell my DBEs about this? You know, what's provided in these resource centers for my DBEs. You know, some of the things that are available through these resource centers, they talk about market research, market analysis. They offer business counseling, and these are to DBEs. You have to be certified as a DBE to get these services, or either as a small disadvantaged business through the Small Business Administration and some of the other certifications through the Small Business Administration or SBA. But this is something directly are attributed to DBEs. And so this you want to let your DBE community know about. How many of your DBEs could benefit from short-term lending? they have short-term lending programs in place for those DBEs that are participating on DOT-assisted contracts, or they've just been awarded a subcontract on a DOT-assisted contract. And how that really works is that, on receivables, maybe a DBE cannot wait to get their payment from a $50,000 invoice that they submitted to the prime contractor, and the prime contractor submitted to you all, and then you look at it, and then they pay the prime, and then the prime has so many days to pay the sub. And it depends on, where that DBE is in the tier process. Well, that DBE could not get paid, even though you have a 30-day prompt payment. It could take them possibly 120 days to get that particular payment. And so the loan short-term lending process is an agreement with certain lending institutions to where they will finance their receivables. And so that $50,000 invoice that DBE is waiting on, well, you can get a loan for that amount as long as you can prove that you actually have an invoice pending. You can get a loan, and that's why they call it a short-term lending program, to increase that cash flow, to continue to allow them to do business with your organization. The same is true with the bonding and assistance program. All of that information is available on the OSDBU website. And so with this particular program and resource centers, they also have outreach sessions. They also provide conferences applicable to DBEs and small disadvantaged businesses out there. And so that's a huge resource, and that's a huge benefit available to the DBEs at little to no cost. Also, an overview of DBE participation. Where does your DBE participation come from? And so I want to look at, the three main areas to where DBE participation will come from in your particular organization. So the first thing I say here are DBEs participating as prime contractors. They are contracting directly with you. This is construction. They're contracting directly with you. Anytime you get DBE participation directly, meaning that you have a direct contractual relationship with that DBE, that's considered race neutral. If there was a goal on the contract or not, if they contract directly with you as an organization, that's considered race neutral participation. And so we're going to talk about race neutral in a little bit. But the next is through subcontracting. And when you look at this, the program really gets the bulk of their DBE participation through subcontracting opportunities. And you look at when the program first started, there were huge barriers to minority and women-owned businesses getting involved in DOT-assisted highway subcontracting work. And so back in the 70s, they put some programs in place, and then in the 80s, they put together a DBE program for minority businesses. In 87, they included women-owned business enterprises, and then in 1999, they have what we call the socially and economically disadvantaged individual program, to where that is your DBE market, socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. It's no longer just minority and women-owned business program. And so now you're trying to evaluate social and economic disadvantage through the certification process, and then you're involved. And then when you try to get into these DOT-assisted contracting opportunities, now you have an opportunity, if there's a goal on the contract or there's no goal on the contract, for these general contractors, or what we call prime contractors, to find the DBEs through that UCP directory. And that's how they use the directory to meet DBE goals, or to find DBEs to help with the race neutral part of your program. And so these types of relationships could be considered race neutral or race conscious. So you can get DBE participation as a subcontractor through race conscious, meaning there's a DBE goal in the solicitation, or you can get DBE participation if there was no goal on the contract or the solicitation, or if the prime contractor hires a non-DBE and then that non-DBE sub hires a DBE. And so you can count that as race neutral participation as long as it's not used to meet an overall contract or project goal. And so the next area, which some of you may fall into, are what we call direct purchase agreements. And this is where you have the commodities or goods that you're buying directly from a DBE. And so you can get DBE participation that way. And that, again, is considered race neutral because you have that direct contractual relationship. So it's important to understand where your DBEs are coming from and how they're getting involved in your program so you know how to conduct that effective outreach to those particular groups to speak to. This is how we do business in our particular organization. So there are certain methods to meet your DBE attainment. And I talk about the carrots and the stick approach, and you've heard this before. So there are different components of how you meet your DBE attainment. And the first is race conscious. And you're looking at race and gender as a means to meet this DBE attainment or DBE goal. And when you submit your overall goal to FTA, this is through an analysis of the ready, willing, and available market of DBEs versus non-DBEs. And you figure out what's the level playing field. And you tell FTA, well, this is my overall goal. Well, what means or what method you're going to use to meet that overall goal? My race conscious method, I'm going to put goals on contracts. And so when you put a goal on a contract, that's considered race conscious. Also, now good faith efforts come into place. And good faith efforts are talking about, what did the prime contractor do from the date of the solicitation to the date of when the bid or proposal is due. And so you talk about, well, what did you do, prime contractor? What did you do, bidder? Or what did you do, proposer, during this span of time to meet and find DBEs to meet this contract goal? And so that documentation will be collected and submitted either as a part of responsiveness, which is due at the time of bid, or as a part of responsibility, which is due a few days after the bid. And the prime contractor will gather all their paperwork and submit this information to you to evaluate their good faith efforts if they did not meet the goal, meaning that they did not find enough DBEs during this solicitation phase to meet the goal. And so that's what I call the stick approach. The carrot approach, how do you get DBE participation race neutrally? And basically it's blind to color or gender, and these are contracts with no DBE goals in them. And so now you're relying on the prime contractor or the bidder or proposer to find DBE participation just in the manner of trying to get more participation from DBEs race neutrally, meaning they don't have to do this. But in good faith, they want to get DBEs and more DBEs involved in the process through building relationships, through having these meetings, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. How do you get more DBE participation race neutrally? And so that's where we don't have these good faith efforts, and there's no requirement in place to have good faith efforts be submitted. And this is where you as an organization, you need to really sit down and figure out, what are we putting into these solicitations? One, where are we located? Are we in the Ninth Circuit jurisdiction? And it's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. You probably heard that term used before. And that all stemmed from a court case that happened in 2005 to where Western States Paving sued the U.S. DOT and Washington State DOT. And they said, this program is not constitutional. Also, WashDOT, you're not implementing the program correctly. And so this made it all the way up to the courts, and the courts initially sided with the USDOT. However, on appeal, in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that's where the term Ninth Circuit comes from, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, they said, yes, okay, the program is constitutional on its face. However, as implemented, they determined that Washington State DOT didn't implement the program correctly. So they said that if you're going to have a race-based program, meaning that you're going to have race-conscious measures or a method of DBE attainment through race-conscious remedies or methods, you need to have some statistical evidence to support that all of the DBEs, all of those groups that make up DBE are indeed disadvantaged. And so how do you do that? Through conducting a disparity study. And so if you're in that 9-state region in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, in order to use race-conscious measures towards your DBE attainment, well, you needed a disparity study to support that. And so now these agencies had to go out and conduct that disparity study to get the information that they need to get DBE attainment through race-conscious remedies. Without that information, you had to go 100% race neutral, meaning that you're going to meet your overall goal through race neutral remedies. Now, some of you all have a split, and you should have a split as far as I'm going to meet my overall goal through a portion of race neutral and a portion of race conscious. Well, the biggest thing is, how do I conduct the outreach to do that? And so when we look at DBE outreach, and that's the purpose of this forum, is to really talk about what are some of the strategies that you all are using, what are some strategies that's available for me as a DBE liaison officer to get that DBE participation. And what I've done here is provided you a definition of outreach. And this is not my definition, this is Webster, so blame Webster. This is the extending of services or assistance beyond current or usual limits. Assistance beyond current or usual limits. This means that you're reaching beyond your normal framework. You're stepping outside the box. You're doing more, possibly with less. You're taking that extra step, going that extra mile to get that DBE participation. And that's the definition of outreach. You know, we're doing a little bit more than what's in our job description. You know, we're going out and making those and building those relationships, even though that's not in my job description. It's going beyond usual limits. So what are some ways that we can do that? You know, do you use social media? You know, in today's time, social media is how we communicate with each other. So why not incorporate that in your outreach process for DBEs and small businesses? A lot of you already have on your websites today Twitter feeds, Facebook links, you have YouTube videos, you have email campaigns through several email marketing software and companies. And so do we use the same to communicate to our DBEs and small businesses? You know, do we tell the DBEs and small businesses about contracts before they even let, or before they even hit the street? And if I'm a DBE and I don't find out about an opportunity until it's actually solicited, well, now it's possibly too late, because these teams have already been formed. These relationships have already been built. I need to know before it gets on the street. I need to know who are the primes in these industries so I can start marketing to them directly. I want to get on their team. You know, if I'm trying to bid as a prime, I want to put the resources together, mobilize my force to be ready when those contracts hit the street. And sometimes it's too late to try to, you know, put these relationships together. I know you have pre-bid and pre-proposal meetings, but sometimes those teams are already formed. So how do you connect primes and subs on large procurements? I haven't forgot about you guys that have small procurements, but let's talk about the big transit systems right now. And this could be something that could help some of the smaller, medium-sized transit systems. So how do you connect them together? And I just talked about pre-bid and pre-proposal meetings. You know, that's a way to get that DBE to talking to that prime contractor. That's also an opportunity for you as a liaison officer to speak to how you comply with the DBE regulation. And if you, on these larger procurements, if you can, you want to have that pre-bid or pre-proposal meeting to talk about, this is this is the organization's expectation as it relates to the DBE program. This is what you require to do. This is what we encourage you to do. Carrots and stick approach, whichever way you're going out. Also, outreach events. Many of you already conduct a lot of outreach events, but are they effective? Are the DBEs and the small businesses that come to these sessions, are they walking away with some valuable information, or is it what a lot of firms refer to as lip service? So do you have the necessary people? Do you have a meet the buyer process in place or a component in place? Do you have a meet the prime component in place to where they can find and meet the primes even before an actual bid comes out? They can just meet several prime contractors that normally bid on your projects. And this is an opportunity for, say, me as a DBE to go out and market. And a lot of it is building relationships face-to-face time with these individuals. That's how individuals build relationships in the business community, through meeting other folks. Another process is a plan holders list. And what that is that when you advertise a bid or a proposal through an RFP or through an IFB, you have this information on your website, which is fine. But a DBE or a small business, they may not have the resources to bid as a prime contractor. And so the only method they have is to hope someone calls them by looking through this UCP directory. So how can I find out those that are interested in doing business and those that are interested in submitting a bid on a live opportunity? So what some agencies have developed is what we call a plan holders list. And so this opportunity is listed on the website. And if you download, they have a little abstract about what the project entails. But if you download the full bid or the full proposal, then your name, your company name and contact information goes into some kind of repository to where now you're considered a plan holder because you have the whole bid. That means that you may be pretty serious about submitting a bid or proposal on this particular project. And so now I go to the website, and all this is through a registration process. If it's in my NAICS code, North American Industry Classification Code, which is an industry code or commodity code, if it's in my industry, now you have some active listeners to where I can go out and contact these plan holders for either teaming opportunities, joint venture opportunities, or subcontracting opportunities. Because sometimes I could be a smaller business and download the procurement. Maybe I can't bid as a prime, but if enough people contact me and we build those relationships, maybe we can form a joint venture to come in as a prime. Or maybe we can build our resources to come in and bid to a prime contractor as a larger subcontractor. And so that's something that a lot of agencies are doing to help make that connection between the primes and the subs. Also, what other strategies? We want to talk about that at the end of this presentation when we go live and talk about what are you doing to help build those relationships between primes and subcontractors. So how do you let DBEs know about your opportunities? Do you talk to your DBEs? Do you let them know? Do you talk to the small businesses? Let them know down the pike. Do you send what we call forecast schedules? You already predicted or forecasted what you're going to let in the upcoming 3 fiscal years in your goal setting process, so don't say you can't do it. You already have some kind of indication of what you want to do because you already completed that goal setting methodology. And maybe you want to just limit it to just maybe this quarter, or maybe this semi-annual process. This is what we're looking. You have a better indication, maybe 3 months out or 6 months out. This is what's coming, or this is what we propose on letting. And that's going to allow those DBEs to get ready, allow those small businesses to get ready for the opportunity that's coming. Build those relationships, and not just finding out about a solicitation once it's on the street, because a lot of times it's too late to come to the party. Now, a couple of methods that I talk about here. How do you get this information to DBEs? Do you pull? And this is a pull method that I talk about. Do you solicit on the website, meaning that your solicitations on the website, and you encourage DBEs, you encourage bidders, or you encourage individuals that want to do business with you, well, just come to our website. We advertise on our website. If you want to know about us, come to our website. That sounds very easy on your end, but as a business owner, I may not have the resources or the time to go to every single transit system just in my state alone, if I can work statewide, to go to each one of their websites to figure out your opportunities. And there's software out there, there are programs out there that you can register with and pay a fee for. I know that you can get all of your information if you subscribe to those services, but that's extra resources. How we're talking about race neutral means and ways, and we're talking about DBE outreach, going that extra mile to get that DBE participation. Or do you use what I call a push method, to where now you have something like a vendor registration process with commodity codes in place? I go in and I register on your website as a vendor, as a particular business that's interested in doing DOT assisted work, and then I have my commodity codes. And so when something comes down under my industry code, I get a notification. And if you got that other system in place, and I talk about the plan holder list, I get a notification of this bid, and now I have a list of the plan holders. I'm in the loop as a DBE or a small business. Now I can start working my marketing. I'm already on a UCP. I'm going to go ahead and market directly with these plan holders, try to build relationships. And that's how I get my DBE participation. That's how I let my DBEs know about the opportunities. Again, going that extra mile. Now, lastly, before we open it up to comment and questions, how do I get DBE participation when I'm in a rural area? I have a small populated area. We don't have that many DBEs in my area, or I'm operating a complete race neutral program. I can't put goals in a solicitation because I don't have a disparity study right now, or I have to go mostly race neutral because my disparity said that there was no disparity in the particular groups. How do I do this? Well, I say this is where you have an avenue through your Fostering Small Business Participation Program. Remember that requirement that you had to update your DBE program in 2012 to incorporate DBEs and small businesses, removing those barriers? Did you know within that you can establish incentives for small businesses in your opportunities? That's like saying in an RFP, you can put, and this is in race neutral environment, you can put points if you are considered a small business. Of course, you have to set some criteria and let them know what a small business is, and develop a program around that, or adopt a program in your area. But now you can establish points or incentives for small businesses. You can go even a step further now and create what we call small business set-asides. Again, this is not gender or race-based. And so now you can set small business set-asides. And this is something that's spoke on in the Q&As. They have a whole section of USDOT question and answers on FTA's website, on the Office of Civil Rights website, on the OSDBU website. The Q&As, they talk about the small business program. And so if you fall into this category, even if you're larger agencies, I've seen very large agencies go 100% race neutral through their small business program, and they're successful with getting DBE participation through their small business program. And so now if you fall into this rural area, you fall into this small populated area, you're operating your DBE program in a race neutral environment, you really have to work that small business program. You're benefiting all small businesses, which is inclusive of DBEs. And then lastly, recruit those DBEs from the metro area. You know, even though you may be a few hours removed, especially usually these types of agencies in smaller population in rural areas, you're not building much of anything anyway. So you don't have construction going on. You're dealing with consultants. You're dealing with commodities. You're dealing with vendors that provides goods and commodities to you, or services through professional services. And so they can ship things to you. They can provide support, online support. You're taking this online. This course or this form is online. There's technology out there to where you could possibly do business with a DBE in a metro area, to where you have more concentration of DBEs. And so that is a method. You step back and look at, what do we spend our money on in our transit system? Office supplies, don't forget about that. You know, instead of going to the big box stores, maybe I can get a portion of my office supplies from a DBE or from a small business. And maybe I'll have a small business set aside for office supplies for the year. And so that's something that, as an incentive, that you can do. Or you have this huge procurement for office supplies, and you know, huge is all relative, but you have this procurement and you put a small business goal into that procurement, to where if it's one of those larger big box stores, well, they have to make a good faith effort to meet your small business goal. And they need of course, a directory to find those small businesses, but that could also be inclusive of DBEs or other non-DBEs that meet the category for small business. So those are ways to figure out, you know, how do I get that DBE participation no matter what environment you're in. And when you go back and look at the DBE certification benefits, you remember that slide? And you look at the benefits associated with certification, that had no ramifications if you are in race conscious or race neutral. Those are just straight benefits for being a DBE, from being a DBE certified in a DOT assisted agency. And so we have to get the message out to our DBE community and our outreach efforts. Look, we want to help you help us. And so these are the benefits of getting into the program. And it's not so much as, hey, help us meet our goals. Well, you know, what is it in that for me? How is it helping me? And so just think about and get your toolkit together to help enable those DBEs to be more successful in your DOT assisted opportunities. And so that's my presentation on DBE outreach. I want to open it up and go live now to some of your questions and comments as it relates to the DBE program. So let's go ahead, either you can chat your messages, or if you want to go ahead and speak, go ahead and do that and unmute your microphones. So let's go ahead and talk about how can we help our sister agencies through best practices, through things that we're doing that could possibly be replicated in other parts of the country. So don't be shy, and let's go ahead and have a discussion.